I make lists of lists. I've put my family on lists. They ignore them, but I still create them, okay? And I go through things, but I've done a lot of different roles in a lot of different companies, but no one told me that when I was promoted into leadership, whether it's an executive role, it's a managerial role, it's been a volunteer role, that the skills I had before were not the skills I needed as a leader. And no one told me how much it was gonna suck to be the leader sometimes. I have decided that I've called a new bias. It's called the if I was the boss bias, where everybody just judges you, where everybody thinks that they would do a better job if they were in your job, and there's just all these assumptions and things that come at you on a regular basis. And honestly, being a leader, sometimes really, really just hard. You're trying to make change, you're trying to do things, you're trying to do the right things, you're trying to be supportive, and sometimes it just feels like nothing you do is right. And there are moments where I've gone, I need courage, right? And I need to be courageous. And a lot of people will look at me like, she's super courageous. Like, she'll say anything, do anything, talk about anything. But even I have moments where courage is necessary. I have jerk friends. I had to change my dress after that. The thing's mouth was taped. I understand it was just a baby, but for me, it was a nightmare. I was like shaking. There are people that can't get up and do and speak. I can speak in front of 2,500 people as a conference chair for Agile 2017, not break sweat, be totally fine. Well, I don't even know, was it an alligator, was it a crab? That thing was terrifying, right? And in that moment, people kept just doing things like this. Well, just be courageous, just go. Telling someone to be courageous is the equivalent to telling someone to calm down. It doesn't work. It wasn't like, oh, that's right. And you could hear my friend in the background, and I loosely say friend Christina. She's like, he's fluffy. No, he ain't. There's a reason his mouth is taped, people. And it was terrifying. And the reality is for everybody, there's something that scares them. For everybody, there's different things where we might feel like somebody else is like amazing because they don't need that courage, and you, it's like takes everything in you. And it's different for everybody. So I started really thinking about what do I do when I need a little bit more courage? Because it isn't just telling myself, buck up, Trisha, it'll be fine. It's not enough. So I started thinking about what I do, what I need to do when I find myself not being very courageous as a leader. Because at the end of the day, when I'm not courageous as a leader, chances are I'm making bad choices. Chances are I'm making choices that are going to hurt myself, the organization, my clients, the people, because I'm scared. And so I started kind of going, okay, well, if I think about my career, there's been so many times I've needed courage. I don't know what it is about me, but I feel like I have written on my forehead, please tell me a very mean thing directly to my face because I can take it. So I've literally had people come up to me and say, I'll just wait till you fail first and see what, and then decide. I've had people come up to me and say, are you the token female? Is that why you got the executive position? To my face. I've had somebody who didn't get a lead developer position, and I did, call me up and ask me if I was sleeping with someone. directly to my face. Oh, I cannot have my room not be louder, so we will be fixing this in a minute, okay? But like these kinds of things I've heard over and over in my career, and they're tough because it's hard, right? And it's easy to then start to get in your own head. It's easy to kind of start panicking about things. And then what happens to my courage goes down even further, right? And yet when I stop back and I think about my career as well, I've heard lots of amazing things. This isn't actually usually part of this talk, but I'm working on handstands because that's what you do when you're approaching 50. Like work on a freestanding handstand. Like why not? And so I did it on the casino floor in front of the casinos. And I posted on Facebook. First of all, my husband was like, sweet baby Jesus, wash your hands. Like, and don't come home until you have like thoroughly soaked yourself in like every sanitizer known to man. But somebody who had worked in my organization, at TechSmith, they built Snagit and Camtasia Studio and things. I was director of development. She was a QA in my division. So she wasn't a direct report. She wasn't like somebody I talked to on a regular basis. She saw my post that I was in Vegas. She went, are you in Vegas? And I was like, oh yeah, are you in Vegas? She has not worked for me in 10 years. I have not seen her in 10 years because I actually moved to Colorado. It was part of the reason why I was leaving that company. And she goes, oh my gosh, I'm in Vegas. I'm at the MGM. I'll come see you. And I'm like, I'm doing 2 tutorials tomorrow. I have a welcome reception. Then I have a speaker dinner. I have like 15 minutes. I don't know if it's worth your time. I will make time. She hauled herself over here for 15 minutes with me just to tell me that I made it. Oh, I'm going to get emotional already. Made a difference. And every time I think about, am I really doing enough? Am I really being a good leader? Half the time when I do sessions, I share horrible things about what I've done to the point that I wonder if people are like, why are we learning from her? Why, we should not read her book. Like, it's terrifying. And yet, at the end of the day, for all the negatives I've heard, I know that I'm making a difference. I know that I've impacted people. I know that it's worth it to be a leader, even though sometimes it really sucks. And so when we think about this, I started thinking about, well, what does courage even mean? And so I looked it up because, and this was pre-chat GPT. Like I had to do the hardcore lookup, right? And actually go to a dictionary. And I went, the crazy thing is if you were to ask a lot of people who know me, they would actually say some of these words. They would actually use some of this to describe me. And yet I don't always describe myself this way. I'll describe everybody else this way. But we're really hard on ourselves, right? Versus other people. And so I'm thinking about this and I'm like, okay, well, I think I could be courageous, right? I could do this. And then life hits and reality sets in. And so I had to start thinking about what are things that I actually do when this may seem obvious, may seem easy, but is anything but that. And so these are my tips. These are things I still do today, some of which I did this week, okay, when I need to get courageous and start thinking about things. First one is to show the details. So I had, and because I'm live, I'm going to do it this way. Love you, virtual people. So I started thinking about, okay, problems happen at work all the time as a leader. How many people have had somebody like, I had a lead developer approach me and they're like, this team is not stepping up. This team's not getting any work done. And I was like, and they're delaying my stuff, right? And you get these in-battling within the organization of team and team because you broke the cross-functional rule, which is what causes that problem, but let's not go there. So I'm like, okay. And the courage that it was taken to try and have that conversation to say, no, that team is good. This team is struggling with multitasking. This team is struggling because we're not cross-functional. That seemed like it was a tough conversation, right? Because it seemed, no matter what I said, I looked defensive. So I changed it up and I started to show the details. So what I did was I tracked over, like, in this case, they were doing Scrum. So I tracked over 5 sprints. I said, this is the work that we planned. And we started in the sprint. But this is the work that were fires that came in that we had to work on. And out of those fires, that was all we were able to finish. This isn't a team that isn't getting things done. This is a team that can't focus. And this isn't a one-time situation where Paul was just lazy. This is consistent. This is a pattern. And by showing the details, it made it a lot less difficult for me, or a lot easier for me to be courageous, because I'm just showing trends. I'm just showing data. I'm just showing information. What's there to be courageous about here, right? This is the reality. This is what's happening. Now, if you would like to solve your problem of the team not getting things done, and I would like to solve my problem of the team not being able to get things done, what are some experiments we can try? Now I've aligned our problems, but I've given us data to just kind of look at it and go, what's going on? It gets really easier in that regard once we have that, once we're doing those kinds of things. Let me give another example of showing the details where I realized as a leader, by not showing the details, I could have caused more problems. I don't know what you're going to do here, so deal with it. So I had a person on the team come up to me, and they were super mad. And they were going on and on about the team is not stepping up. They're not doing work. And in sprint planning, I'm doing all the work, and they're not doing the work. So I was like, now old Trisha, micromanager Trisha, which still tries to come out occasionally, really wanted to just fix this problem and assign work. Anybody else resonate with that, or is it just me? Like, yeah, thank you for being my peeps, right? Like, I just was like, oh, I'll fix this problem. I know, I'll assign people because they're just twiddling their thumbs, right? Like, and I did it, but I was like, nope, gonna show the details. So at the end of sprint planning, before we officially ended sprint planning, I went, I put that person's name, and then I would highlighted all the tasks that they had signed up for in that sprint planning. And then I highlighted everybody else's name, And I was so proud of myself because I was like, oh, look at how obvious this is going to be. And I get the irony. I wrote a book, Lead Without Blame, and I'm showing an example of how I shamed people publicly. I get the irony. There's a reason I wrote this book, from lessons learned, okay? But I was like, I know, public shaming is the way to get something done. So I'm going to show this at the end of sprint planning, and they're going to realize that they're not stepping up, and they're going to go, oh, maybe we should do more. Only that's not what happened. What happened was actually this person looked at that person and said, would you please let us do something? Because what was really happening was that all throughout the entire sprint planning, this person was going, oh, it's just faster if I do it. It's just fast. I already know that. I'll just get in there. I already have that task. I'll just do that. This person was actually creating the problem, not these individuals. If I had gone in and fixed it the way I wanted to fix it, the way my core micromanager self wanted to fix it, what would have happened? What would I have done to this team?
You're going to feel like work is just pushed in versus self-organized, self-managing in it themselves.
I would have just destroyed them further because they would have felt blamed for something they had no control over. The trust would have been completely broken, and I would have been lost all respect in that team. But by showing the details, by showing this, by just making it visible and allowing them to it fostered the conversation that actually needed to happen. I didn't have to be courageous, but by showing the details, it actually promoted them to be courageous. And I started thinking about that as how many times am I putting extra weight on myself that's making me feel like I needed extra courage because I'm not trusting their courage. And if I show the details, I might just find and spot some of that courage that I needed. that they needed. And I might have been wrong about what the problem was. Questions about show the details? Okay. Now, my one preface with this is, do not use this data to weaponize towards people. Don't do what I did originally, okay? Like if you were using data to use as a weapon, no, I will know and I will come find you. No, right? But if you're showing the data so that they can generate insights, if you're showing the data so they can promote that conversation, the courage is a little less because it's just right there. So that's tip number one. So I want you to think about to do this tip, because how do I show which data, right? Who can you collaborate with that might be able to help you to go, this is the problem it's having, how do I visualize it? Because you might be so stuck in it that you're just trying to solve it and you can't even think about what data or how you would show the details. So think about who could you collaborate and go, here's the problem, what could we show, what could we visualize, what could we see that might be highlighting that this problem isn't very valuable, or that this is the real root of the problem. So think about that, and especially if you're too deep into it, that you're just wanting to solve it, work with somebody to try and visualize it, okay? Tip number 2, share the magic. So I'm going to play a little game for a second, and I'm going to hide it in my scarf for a second, right? Look at it, but don't show anybody, okay? Amber, will you play a little game with me? Okay. Have a deck of cards. Have black cards, got red cards. Please pick. Red, perfect. Got heart cards, got diamond cards. Please pick. Okay. Got face of heart cards, got non-face of heart cards. Please pick. Face, great. Got ace, king of hearts, got queen, jack of hearts. Please pick. Queen, jack, perfect. Got queen of hearts, got jack of hearts. Please pick. Queen of hearts, show it, Brian. For the camera. What did I just do to Amber? That's not leading. Yes, manipulated. I manipulated Amber. Sorry, love you. We do this often as leaders sometimes, because especially in the Agile space, we're told you have no authority or empower the team. You're like, I know the answer, so I can't tell them that. So I know I'll manipulate them till they pick the thing I would have said. All of you are like, I wouldn't do that. And all of you are going to queen of hearts somebody next week. And you're going to notice it in that moment. You're like, oh, I totally queen of hearts them, right? Like it happens all the time. And by the way, I did win on the Queenie slot machine this weekend. Queen of hearts was a friend of mine from that exercise, okay? I only won like $30, but still, taking it. I was like, oh, there's a Queen of Hearts slot machine? That seems like it's calling my name, right? But here's the dynamic. It is tough. I used to say something like this along the ways. People, if I'm doing a really good job as a leader, nobody knows what I'm doing. But this is problematic. And here's why it was problematic. My good intent of it was the focus shouldn't be on me. My good intent of it was I want the focus on the team, right? My good intent was serving. Except, are you teaching your next set of leaders if they don't know what you're doing? Except, if they don't understand what's happening, you're more likely to be manipulating than truly leading. Some of you are like, how did she do that? Anybody still need to know that before I move on? Is there people? Okay. So it didn't matter what she said. I was going to keep or throw away. You just kept choosing really well. So I said, please pick. If she had said diamonds, I would have just went getting rid of diamonds and I would have kept going. So now if you try this with your team, please practice it first because you got to have a rhythm and a flow. And it's best to stand over the person because then they never try and fight you. Little tips. You never should know. So feel free that you highlight them for me. But we want to be sharing the magic. We want to be highlighting to people what's going on and what is behind the scenes so that it's not manipulation. There are times I don't want to tell everybody up front, but there are other times that, no, something's going on. So I had a team once where they didn't want to enter their tasks into Jira. I'm like, but you have to because I need to know what you're doing. But that was not an effective motivation, turned out. And it didn't make them put anything into into Jira. So I was like, okay. And then I had a person on my team, and he kept going, I'm working on, and I'll just say, I'm working on product backlog item X. And then in the daily scrum, I'm still working on X. This is stupid. And then would not update Jira at all. And I'm like, oh, like I can feel myself twitch. And where you just want to go in there and update it for them. But I was like, no, not going to do it. Not going to do it. Because the point of the tool is for them to manage themselves, right? And I was like, nope, not going to do it. But my panic started, and I felt like I had all this pressure coming, right? Like, don't you know where your team is? Don't you want? And it's like, that's it. I got to share the magic. So I gave a warning. I walked up to that product owner. I said, okay, the thing that he's working on, probably not going to get done. But my problem is I want to do the long game, not the short game. And if I focus on the short game, I'm going to be tracking, walking around going, are you done yet? Are you done yet? Are you done? And I cannot do that. I have more value than that. And you want to get stuff done. So I need them to realize the value of this tool, but this is how I'm going to do it. And it might mean that this priority is not going to get done. Is that a game changer? Like absolutely the company goes down, or can we go with this thing? So what I'm doing is I'm incorporating that product. It's making that product owner not think that I'm just sitting there going, do, right? But that I do know, I see what's happening, but I'm making a conscious choice to let them learn. Luckily, that product owner goes, go for it. Have at it. So we did. Now, this person gets to the end of the sprint and does not show up to work on Friday. Sprint ends on Monday. On Friday, in my daily scrum, I said, where's this product backlog item? And they all responded with, that's Sue's. And I was like, Sue is not a role in Scrum. Where is this product backlog item? And they went, Sue's. And I'm like, Sue is not a role in Scrum. Where is this product backlog item? And by the third time that I repeated it, they went, ugh. Now I will benefit from the fact that they all made a choice to work all weekend and do that product backlog item for scratch. Sue was actually in the hospital, Sue is fine now, married with kids, it's all beautiful, okay? But at the time, Sue was pretty sick. So that this was the way that they could help that. So there was some extra benefit of motivation in there, right? But they spent all week because they also knew how important that product backlog item was. And that product owner was beautiful in that daily scrum. Well, but we can't release if we don't have that. Like that was one of the number one priorities. And everybody's like, oh, we did know that, right? Like, and panicking, right? They finished it. They got it out. Sue returned to work a couple weeks later. And the only thing that wasn't done was telling the team it was done. Guess who led the charge for showing their information and writing it into the backlogs for future sprints? Sue. Because they started to learn what the tool was. They understood what the magic of the tool was. It wasn't just me walking around going, I need to know what you're doing every day. Please track your time. It was to promote that shared ownership. But I wouldn't have even gotten to that learning if I didn't take the time to warn that product owner, to help, to encourage, to partner and explaining what is the learning I'm trying to accomplish? What am I trying to help people build? People do not want to feel like you're just letting people fail for the sake of failing because let's laugh. That's not good. But on the same note, if you're really shooting for that long term, what you're trying to achieve, you can't let people feel like it's just chaos either, because that's scary to people. So you want to come into things and saying, hey, let me give a warning. Let me engage. Because there's so many times that we think the edge is so much closer than it actually is, that we stop the learning, when really we just needed to share the magic of what we were trying to learn. I used to say this statement often. I said this statement, if you repeat a mistake I've made, I've failed. It's a bad statement. If I repeat a mistake I made, I failed. But you've never made that mistake. And the only reason I know it's a mistake is because I got to make it. I had a lead QA once who was the only person who ever did the code, final, production rollout. And this was in early 2000s when you still had to do it at 4 a.m. in the morning because you were bringing down the servers. Don't judge, okay? And you were doing things, and every time I kept going, you are a single point of failure. You have to help other people start learning this. You want to start working on test automation. You want to start getting into other things. You can't do that if you're still the only person doing this. And every single release, there would be some legitimate, validated, justified reason that that person had to be the person that finally just took over and did it and wasn't teaching. Until one time he slept in and didn't wake up and didn't show up. And I just looked at the rest of the team. I'm like, do we have a rollback? Can we try? Just try. And it was a horrendous, miserable experience, but they released it. And then they asked him not to come for the next one so that they could get faster at it. You cannot stop people from learning if you want to scale. So all those justifications you have in your head, how many people have ever had the thought, oh, I'm so getting fired today, and then didn't? Did anyone ever have that thought, right? Or, oh my gosh, the world's coming to an end. And if COVID didn't bring it down, your feature on your product app, no offense, probably not bringing it down. But we act like we don't have the ability to spend the luxury of the time learning. And the problem is, the learning is the only thing that actually delivers. So share your magic, share the things with people. Think about who you need to be proactively reassuring, proactively partnering with, proactively talking about what you're doing, why you're doing it as a leader. Because then they don't question you quite as much, and you don't need to be as courageous about it. You gave that product owner an out. Now it doesn't seem as scary because you have a partner that's coming in there with you. Questions on this tip? Okay, third tip. Got to take a deep breath for this one. Get creative within your bounds. How many people love their performance eval system and approach? Oh.
But because I don't follow it.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So
I figured out the way to make it fun.
So I was actually at this conference, and it probably was 2011 or so. And for those that have been in my other sessions, I swear I do not have a drinking problem, but we were at the happy hour bar, and we were drinking. Happy. She used to run, she started the Leadership Summit, Pollyanna Pixton. She's now a retired Agilist. And we're sitting there, and I'm like, oh, I got to go. I have to go do performance reviews for my team. And she's like, aren't you an executive? And I said, yeah. She goes, so you have senior leaders that report to you? And I was like, yeah. She goes, and you're doing performance. And the way Pollyanna used to say it to you, you knew, you're like, oh, she's going to kick me in the butt right now, isn't she? And there's no amount of tequila to know that the gut punch you're about to take is going to hurt less, right? But she's like, really? You've got to do that? I'm like, well, yeah, because that's what the HR system says that we have to do. And she goes, oh, I thought you were smarter than that. And she said it with love as she laughed and then drank her tequila more. And I went, And so we brainstormed the rest of that day. We thought about, what could I do to get creative within the bounds? How could I still do the requirements, but not hate it with everything in my being. So I thank Don Julio, 1942, for coming up with this experiment that we did. I basically went to my senior leadership team and I said, you are going to still self-review, give yourself your number, but unless it's egregious, whatever you give yourself is what I will give you. So I will still put the two evals into the system, their self-review and my eval. But whatever you give yourself is what I'm going to give you, unless it's egregiously wrong. Now, when I told my HR person that I was going to do this, what did she freak out about? What was her fears? Yeah, that people would rate themselves higher. How many of you are more critical of yourself than other people? Yeah, that didn't happen. Okay? What else was she afraid of? She actually didn't mind that as much, but they wouldn't care. They wouldn't even do it. They would just not invest in it. It was a little bit more like they would talk and just realize that they weren't going to do it. So how is this going to tie to the bonuses and pay? And I said, okay, let's get real here. I have a team of 10 direct reports, 5 for 12 months, 2 paychecks a month, after tax. Can we just, it's not even that much money often that you are differentiating between a 5 and a 4. A company that I will no longer say the name because I do not want to get sued, spent $3 million to divide $1 million in pay. When we think about the cost that these performance reviews come, at the end of the day, my performance review of you is, would I hire you again, yes or no? Everything else is feedback and should be happening on a regular basis, not one time a year with 14 people all at the same time, so where you're just like cut and pasting. So after that, I didn't want to own your eval. You're a senior leader. I want you owning what you want to, because otherwise, if I own it, I get stupid goals like this. Read a book. Great, you're past kindergarten. Thanks. What are you going to do with that book? Why are you reading that book? What do you want to build from that book? But these SMART goals make us do dumb things like that sometimes. And I'm not knocking SMART goals as a whole. Please don't tweet that. I don't want angry hate mail. But like, what's really the purpose? Is it about the feedback or is it about dividing money, which half the time we're not even dividing much money anyways? So I said, okay, but I said, if it's egregious, I will fix it. I have now done this at 3 different companies and I've only had one that I had to fix. And it was for somebody that I inherited right before performance reviews that was on a PIP. So it wasn't shocking. There was going to be a different dynamic there. Every time else, it was somebody that was rating themselves less, that I was like, you are totally fine. Give yourself, like I wanted to go in and I'm like, no, egregious, I'm fixing this. And I'm glad I didn't, because what was interesting was that next year when she gave herself a 5, she really owned it. If these performance evals are about growth, about delivery, about learning, we can't steal the ownership of them and make them about money. I was at a company once, I will say this company name, I don't care, Pearson Education. And the VP, one of the VPs of the organization sent out an email accidentally to everybody that said, I need 100 more 2s, and if you got a 2, you got no bonus. Because it had nothing to do with the performance. It was a fund allocation tool. So let's either stop pretending that it's about performance and really own that it's about fund allocation or not. But I'm not, even as an executive, I wasn't changing that performance eval situation. Now I was able to make certain changes, like, because what does a 5 mean? And and we hire the best people, but we have to have I did get rid of the bell curve. Because you can't say things like, we hire the best people and we need 100 twos. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And then people do crappy things because if you know at the end of the year as a manager, you got to have 100 twos that you're letting go of, then you keep people around that you don't really like or don't really want on the job anymore. So it's a messed up system on every level. And if you're in HR, I'm sorry, but it's messed up. I'm not sorry. It's messed up. But I'm not going to fix it. I tried to get into an HR conference. They didn't let me in. They did not like my submission, right? But I could get creative within these bounds. I could think about what can I own? Can I control? Can I do that still fits the needs of the system, that still fits within the rules, but accomplishes something that's a little bit better. A little bit more ownership of those reviews. I was able to still stay drinking that evening. Helps with courage too, like, right? Within those bounds. And we get so trapped into the, well, I guess I can't. That's the system, that's the rule. That just, sometimes these rules are stupid. That we need to challenge the rules, but if we can't fix the rule, what can you get creative with it? How can you get creative with it? What does that mean? I thought about this yesterday. I had somebody in one of my sessions, and she works for the government, and she said they're not allowed to hook external cameras to their laptops, which totally makes sense. And in that moment, I went, I got nothing for you. I'm sorry, right? And I continued on with everybody else. And then last night, at the bar, my best thinking maybe comes at the bar. That should not end up on the live stream, recorded. But I went, you could all dial in on your phones too and be on camera. I get the security risk of hooking something into your laptop that has private, sensitized information, but use your phone camera. You can always get creative within your bounds. If anybody knows that person that was in my session with that, please let them know that idea that came to mind. Right? So that's a dynamic that can come into play. We can always get creative within bounds. But we're quick to just be frustrated and feel like it's too courageous because we're trying to solve world peace versus making a little bit of progress. So with this tip, you think about a dynamic of how do I share and break free from that status quo? I don't have to go all the way to the extreme. I don't have to make every company change their performance reviews. I just need to not perpetuate the worst parts of them. Questions? Performance reviews always get at least a question, so I'm going to wait you out here.
So when you said you kind of let them do their own things, what did you write for you? Like, what was your side of their performance with you?
A direct copy of whatever they wrote.
Comments and everything?
Yep. Direct copy of whatever they wrote. Well, technically, I never had to write comments. They never care about the boss's comments. They just want the rating score. Let's get real. But it was just a direct copy. Okay. Here's my fourth tip. There are 5 in case some of you are like, oh my gosh, when is she done ranting? You got 2 more. Fly towards your purpose. I didn't become a leader trying to be a leader. In fact, I left companies trying to avoid becoming an executive. I left companies trying to avoid becoming the manager. I was like, I don't want to be one of them. So I don't know if I ever really understood what my purpose of leadership was, But I got things done. State of Michigan's Medicaid system is a full replacement from legacy. And this was started in 2004. I was one of the overall project managers on that project. And we worked collaboratively together. This is where I, first learned about Scrum in 2004, 2005, and we had perfect burn downs, people, because I knew how to fake Scrum like nobody's business. Pro at it, okay? And but we were doing things, we were trying to get it done, and but I was struggling because I was coming back to work for the first time after a very personal, tragic loss for myself. My first son was stillborn. When I led before my son passing away, I would get in the muck with you. I would code with you. I'd micromanage you because I was that person, right? I did all these things, but I was always getting things done. And when I went back to work, I didn't give a crap. But I started to find that getting those comments of these failures things, but it was when I started getting comments of, wow, that was really helpful. I did a really simple, stupid thing as a leader at that project, and I walked around and was like, do you need anything? Do you need anything? Before I left, every single day. And this guy named Bruce was like, are you just trying to get your steps in? But after the joke, he was like, you cannot understand how many times that it felt important that you were checking with us before you left. Like we were the priority before you left. I was just doing it because I didn't want you to call me afterwards. Let's get real. But as I continued on in this project, I continued on and I would hear things from people. Fixed bid government projects. How do you make your money back on a fixed bid government project? Change requests. If anybody is not familiar with that, if you are a project manager or a contractor with fixed bid projects, how you make your money back is change requests because they commit to a part of work at the beginning, and as we know in Agile, you don't know diddly at the beginning. So I'll just wait till you figure out what you really want, and then I'll change request you until I get my money back. That's not supposed to be recorded and out there, but we're now gonna just let it roll. So the client came to me at one point. We're trying to do Scrum. We were doing Scrum horribly, but the one thing we were actually doing was collaboration. And you couldn't tell who worked for me or who worked for the state of Michigan in this room. They were just like going, they were testing, they were updating, they were getting things done. And at one point the client comes up and she's like, oh my gosh, we forgot this one thing. We cannot go live without this thing. And I went to my director of development. I was like, how much? And he's like, $2,000. Now let me be clear. I sneezed and spent $2,000 on that project. Like $2,000 was like a piece of paper. Like it was just nothing in the grand scheme of things. So I said, no change request. Well, they freaked out. They freaked out. He did not like my answer. He got every VP on our organization on a phone call with me. And for those that took my conflict session, no, bring it. I don't mind some conflict, right? But that was the type of conflict that was a power move. When you have 6 VPs on the phone and the person that skip leveled you telling you all the reasons why you're making a stupid choice. Now, remember the dates, 2005. This is a much less mature Tricia for how I react in this moment. So please limit your judgment, or at least retroactively judge. At one point, somebody said, are you threatening us? And I went, no, I'm promising you. Why? What is wrong with me? Then, because I doubled down some more, one goes, you know, this is ridiculous. We own this project. We're responsible. We're on the hook, right? We've all said these things from the accountability. I said, you know what? I'm tired of this conversation. If you submit a change request, you can expect my resignation at the end of the day. Stupid. People, this is not the power move you think it is. Luckily, my VP was wonderful, and he hung up the phone on anybody. He was like, I think we have a bad connection, just hung up the phone on everybody. He called me back, and he's like, are you this serious? And I was like, oh, I would rather you take it on my paycheck than do this. So they got back together, and they came to an agreement. that when the client came with the next change request and expected it for free, I would be fired. I accepted those terms. Within 4 days, the client came with the next change request, pre-signed without knowing how much we were going to charge them. Why? Because it wasn't about the contract. We were doing Scrum horrifically, but we were actually living customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Until about 5-6 years ago, I'm pretty sure the state of Michigan was the only state to replace their Medicaid system and have it function. Other states process their claims through Michigan because they were unsuccessful. I'm not going to claim that that one moment was the whole reason the project was successful. I didn't even stay on to the project after a period of time, and other people took it to the end. But it was my moment to realize and think about what made me, first of all, do it horrifically. I own that. But in that moment, why did I have so much courage? I should have had better skills of delivery, right? But what was giving me so much courage in that moment? Which is my purpose.
Your mindset?
My mindset, but my purpose is to make a difference because it's the reason I lived and my son didn't. And no one gives a crap about that Medicaid system. I mean, people who probably are on it. I shouldn't have said that. That was bad. Cut that out of the scene, okay? But people are on it, need it, right? But nobody's going to be talking in my memorial about, she built a really good Medicaid system. At the end of the day, if I couldn't do what was right, if I couldn't do what was needed, if I couldn't do something that was making a difference, I didn't want to be doing it. I didn't want to sacrifice people. I didn't want to sacrifice myself. I didn't want to sacrifice why we're actually building software is to solve problems. I don't know what your purpose is of being a leader. I sure as hell hope it wasn't the same as mine because it's been 19 years and it can still bring tears. But if you find a reason why you're leading, then when you get that crappy, judgmental, shitty comment, edit, you remind yourself why you're doing it. That not everybody you're going to be able to impact. Not everybody will like you. Some people really hate me. Hate me. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But I don't need to be everybody's cup of tea. I'm doing this to open doors for other people because people did it for me. I'm doing this because this made me find a reason to live again. And that makes it a lot easier for me to take your crappy comment and just brush it off. To be courageous when I know why I'm leading, even when it's hard. So truly take a minute and think about why you're doing it. It isn't just because you were moving up a career ladder. It isn't because so-and-so just gave you the damn job. Why do you want to be in a spot that's tough? Why do you want to be in a spot that sometimes gets the raw end of the deal? Why are you doing it? And know what that is for yourself, because when you do, it makes it a lot easier to make some of those tough choices. It makes it a lot easier to fly. When people tell you you're crazy, and then later go, so what did you do? And then you get to choose whether you want to help them or not. Right? But like that's part of it, is really thinking about what that purpose is for yourselves. And we get told almost that you're not allowed to because you're a servant leader, right? It's all about the team. Bull, it's about you too. And if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, it gets way harder to stay courageous. Which leads me into the last tip, and it's taking a break. I truly believe that we have really good leaders that just can't take it anymore. They can't take the blaming. They can't take the judgments. They can't take the sacrifice and the selflessness gets to be too much. I told myself narratives like, look, that gossip that's happening, that's part of the job. I just got to accept it. I got to let my actions speak louder than my words. But it's hard. It's hard when people are making comments. It's hard when you're like, but HR is not letting me fire this person yet. You're like, you're trying and everybody's judging you. You're just like. But I thought if I ever said I wasn't doing well, that I was making it about me. I thought if I acknowledged that I was struggling or that I was sad or hurt, that I was making it about me. I thought if I said, this sucks, I failed. In reality, I needed to release some. I had a period of time in a community where I had a lot of conflict going on. No, not conflict, sorry. Straight up drama. I had some straight up drama going down. But I couldn't ask anybody for help. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't want to do that. So I stood in the middle of a coach's camp. And I had some crap topic like, how, the value of a daily stand-up, right? Like, I don't know. I don't even know what I was going to do as a topic. But I stood in the middle of this room, but I had walked down the hallways as I was headed to the coach's camp. And I'd say you and I have been friends for a really long time. And we're walking down. And at this point, there's so much drama going on. There's so many things going on. And I'm not asking for help. I'm not telling anybody I need help, right? That I'm hurting, that I'm thinking. And I was like, oh, Dana didn't say hi to me. She hates me. She thinks I'm crap. Like, and then the next person would be like, oh, my Amber's like, oh, Amber. By the time I got to coach's camp, I had turned the entire Agile community into my hated posse. It didn't, you might not even made eye contact with me. And I was like, see, she didn't hug me. I was literally going nuts. And I got to the middle of that coach's camp clinic and I basically just went, is any of this worth it? I need better coping mechanisms. I can't tell you the drama. I'm not going to talk about the drama. I'm not going to deal with the drama, right? But I need better coping mechanisms. And we went into a session and I won't forget what one person in particular said. And it's part of the reason why I do what I do is she went, thank you. And I'm like, I literally just had a sopping mess of a hot, diarrhea out of my mouth. And you're thanking me? What is going on? And she goes, because you're kind of my superwoman. And I know that if you can break, then every time I'm breaking, I'm not failing. I had to learn to give myself permission that I could say, I can't talk about the details, but this really sucks right now. I'm really struggling. And I may need to dance. I may need to cry. I might need some tequila. But it's okay for me to acknowledge that I'm not okay right now. That doesn't make me a weak leader. That doesn't make the attention about me. That doesn't make it wrong. In fact, I can't take care and help others if I'm so broken. And so I needed to be able to say, I'm struggling. I can't tell you why I'm struggling, but I'm struggling. And by doing that, they filled my session that day and made sure a bunch of them were sitting at the front table just to support me. One was trolling me, so he's just a jerk. But everybody else was wonderful, right? And they went out of their way to make sure that I was things that really didn't normally need. But I ended up realizing you can get support without breaking confidentiality. You can get support without breaking your responsibilities that you have as leaders. And that was a tough lesson for me. But I think we're losing too many leaders because we're not also saying it's okay to say it's hard. So give yourself permission to do that. Think about who in your life you can just say, I need to just go dance, don't ask me questions. I just need to feel supported without breaking confidentiality. Because at the end of the day, we're focused as leaders on the long game, but it's not just the long game for them, it's the long game for you. And to be courageous means you gotta be sustained. You can't do it when you're super low. I wish that was like one more second because it would have been great on the final slide. So here's the last bonus tip. You've already been courageous in your life. I was courageous to say goodbye to my son. I already am that definition. So I need to stop telling myself I'm not. But we all need to stop telling ourselves that. So thank you for spending this morning with me. We are already at time. But I can't end on something sappy like that. So I have a raffle, and I can't make you all read out a number to do it this way because it's too big. And I have to have the loudest room in the conference. So we're going to play a little rock, paper, scissors, and whoever wins is going to get the book. So find a partner first. Everybody, find a partner. Now, before you do this, okay, decide between yourselves if you're going to go on 3 or you're not. So rock, paper, scissors, okay? Decide amongst yourselves. It's of 1. When you win, raise your hand, and then I'm going to give the next instruction. Go. Okay, let me see hands. 1. Okay, who's my winners? Who's my winners? Everybody's winners. Hands. I need my winners. Winners. Okay, before I give the next instruction. Well, just hold on with it. We got it with it. So ready? I need my winners' hands. So winners' hands. Here's what you're gonna do. Oh, they're going. Hold on. They got. Okay, winners' hands. Ready? Now, the person who was just with that person, you are their biggest cheerleader. You are their support. So as they go find their new person, you are their biggest supporter. Winners, go find somebody else with their hand up and go. Next one. Who's my winner? Over here. Go there. Okay? Okay? Who are my winners? Okay, winners, go fight, and your supporters. Now, if you were in the group, now there's 4 of your supporters. Winners, go find your next winner. Go. Keep going. No, go. I got it. Go find your new next winner. Yeah, it's winners. Let's go. Okay, come on. Okay, who's my winner over here? Who's my winner over here? Okay, who's my winner over here? Okay, you 2, you're my finals. Let's go. Do I have any other winners? Oh, okay, then we got 2 for you. Winner 2. Okay, you do 2. You do 2. Go. Okay, and your supporters go. Rock, paper, scissors. So we're going on. Wait. So rock, paper, scissors. Okay, so now you're all with her. Ready? Okay, ready? You 2 come in. We got our finals. Ready? Come on. Finals. Everybody, you're the make sure. Let's go. Let's go. Hey, where's your sweaters? Let's go. That's not on 3. Shoot. Okay, got it. 1, 2, 3, shoot. Woo! And with that, enjoy the rest of your conference, everybody.